welcome to Yoga Pilates Fusion here in the living room or the den or bedroom, wherever you are. Here we are in our home studios. So we're going to start out in the way that we often do, laying on our back, and you can do that just by simply lying down if you like. But if you want to add a little something to the practice and you have a blanket handy, you can take a blanket, and essentially what you want to do is make the blanket roll that we're going to do long enough that it covers your head and most of your spine down to your low back. So if I were super tall, I would roll it up along this long line. Since I'm not that tall, I can fold it one more time and roll it this way. Now, if I roll it really, really tight, it's going to be firmer and put a little bit more of a lift. If I roll it a little bit looser, so it's a little bit more of an oval, it'll be a little bit, it'll feel a little broader and a little softer. So just depending on how sensitive you are to having something under your back, blanket is a nice option for creating a little bit of a lift, like releasing some tension that might have developed in the shoulder from either leaning over the computer or just, you know, if you sleep snuggled up in a corner or in a little curled up position, this can be useful. And otherwise, just lie down. Okay, so I want it to go right down the middle of my spine. I like to start it like just at the bottom of my rib cage so that it's supported by the ribs and my low back can curve at the appropriate kind of curve. You can also, if you have a little extra blanket, you can make a little extra under your head to lift your head up a little bit. And then the idea here is to let the shoulder drop around the blanket, so just making sure you've got the right space. Arms can go wider or closer. And then once you're set up here, just breathe nice, deep, smooth, rhythmic breaths. Things that I try to do while I first settle in to breathe is I breathe deeply and rhythmically to begin with, and then every few breaths kind of try to push a breath up into the rib cage to release some tension in between the ribs. So we're working on any tension we might have in the deep shoulder here, but we can also release a little bit of the breathing muscles that live in between the ribs as well, using the breath as a tool. About 30 more seconds here just to allow ourselves to breathe and release a little in the shoulders. Take a nice big inhale, and then you can roll yourself over to one side and just slide the blanket out from under you, or whatever you might be using, and then come on back onto your back and notice what happens. So I like to do these little windshield wipers with the legs. You can do more of a rock if you want to, or curl your knees into your chest. The most important part for me is just to feel the shoulder. Often it feels like when I first lie down on the floor, that my shoulder kind of comes forward. So I'm looking to see, did the shoulder release a little bit more deeply into the floor, as it felt like right around my collarbone area that has broadened or opened up a little bit. And those are the little signposts that I use to see that how long should I stay on the blanket when I use it. And usually a few minutes is enough to at least get me started in the right direction. So we're going to bring the knees up, give yourself a little bit of a hug and a little back massage if you like, and then we're going to take the legs over to one side. You can wrap one leg around the other, or just stack them up, or you could even put a little block underneath if you want a little more support. And then we're going to really try to stretch this chest muscle along with this hip. So reaching the shoulder down toward the floor and stretching out through the arm. The angle can change. Just find the angle that doesn't cause trouble. And then draw the hip around towards the knees. So we're twisting the back and, towards the floor with the shoulders, towards the knees with the hips. You can look either direction. Nice big breath. And then we're going to bring the knee back, and then the other. Now, when you get to the center, just take a moment and pause and see if you can feel a difference between the two shoulders or between the two hips. And notice if it feels like that's a pleasant difference. If it doesn't feel pleasant, you might not be quite as intense on the second side. And then you might also just wait for a moment to kind of feel like your spine has returned to normal. I'm feeling pretty good. There's a moment where I feel my body just kind of relax a little bit, and that's the moment I know it's time to go to the opposite side. So you can take your legs over when you're ready. And again, we're going to kind of roll the shoulder toward the floor and then extend the arm. However the arm feels best to be extended. Roll the hips towards the knees. In that direction. So we're going down and around so that the spine gets the twist in a really lovely way. And again, adjust your legs as you see fit. Sometimes one side's a little tighter than the other, so make a note of that. And then don't forget the breath. Two more really big breaths. We're going to come on back to the center. And again, pause and notice any impacts from that particular pattern of stretching. Now we're going to rest the feet on the floor. You're going to bring your hands behind your head, and you're going to press your head back into your hands. Now this is the important part. So we're doing two things. One is we're creating a situation where the neck muscles are already busy. So they're busy pushing backwards, so we can't use them to try to pull ourselves forward. And this is largely a body memory action, right? So we're trying to create a body memory of the neck being used to stabilize the head, but not to try to do the work of the abdominals. So we're going to press the head back into the hands and then use the abdominal muscles to curl the upper body up off the floor. So try really, really hard not to pull with the neck, but instead to press the head back and then curl up. So we're going to exhale on the curl up and inhale and come down. And so we're working the upper abs, getting them a little warmer, and we're also trying to establish this memory in the neck. So just curl up on your exhale Inhale down. One more. All right, and then come on back down. And we're going to put the left ankle up on top of the right thigh. Reach out through the right arm. Now you can keep your left hand behind your head. Keep pressing your head back into your hand as we curl up towards that left knee. Or you can put your left arm down beside you. And then try to work on this idea without the hand there for reference. So I'm going to still let my head be supported by my neck muscles, and my abdominal muscles do the work of twisting up. So coming up towards the left knee on the exhale, inhale back down. Stretch out through your arm in both directions. More. Back to the center. Press your head back, or maybe this time you feel like you can do it without pulling on your neck, then use your arms loose. So again, we're trying to establish the sensation of the head really pressing back into the hands as you curl up. Two more. Right ankle up on top. We're going to take this left arm and reach it across. Again, I'm trying not to lead with my head. Sometimes it's not easy. 3 more. All right, so once you're down, we're going to do one more time in the center, but we're going to pick the knees up. So we're going to bring the knees up so they're about balanced over top of the pelvis. It feels like your low back has a neutral curve, but you're having to use your abs to hold it. And then once again, you can bring your hands behind your head, or you can reach out towards your feet as you curl in. So we're going to curl in, lift the knee, bring the knees in towards the chest, and curl up, pressing the head back. Exhale on the curl up. Inhale down. Keep your head and neck supported. Two more. So bring your feet to the ground. Give yourself a nice big long stretch. Hopefully everything feels nice and toasty, warm in your abdominals. And relax the muscles completely, and then also check in with your neck and see how you did. And so this unwinding of a habit of using the neck to try to do part of the work of the abdominals is just a day-by-day process. Just going to keep working on it if we're having trouble with it, and if we're not having trouble with it, awesome, we're good. So we're going to take this right leg, bring it on in, give it a hug, stretch out your left leg, curl in that leg in towards you, spin your foot in circles. We're going to keep the neck relaxed at this point. Hopefully that feels good. Spin your foot the other direction after a bit. Try to get some that go the whole range of motion that your ankle can make. And then point and flex your foot. Alright, so we're going to stretch that leg out and go slow and see if you get the leg all the way straight. The answer might be no. So we're just going to try to feel it, but we don't want to feel like we're tearing at the hip socket or hip bone. So just allowing a little bit of a stretch to happen. And then just pause for a moment. You can let go of your leg, reach up through the foot. So you can go ball of the toe, you can go pointy, or ball of the foot, pointy toe, or you can flex your foot, okay? So choosing like how you want to adjust the foot. I like to imagine that I'm wearing like a 4-inch heel, reaching up through the ball mound of my big toe. And then if you rotate the leg a little bit externally, there might be a little bit more room for this movement. And if not, you can try like an internal rotation and see if that's more helpful. So you're going to snuggle your shoulder blades under your back, press your hands nice and firm into the floor. Take this opposite leg, the left leg, turn it so the toes point up, bend the knee slightly, dig the heel into the ground. So we've got the whole body ready to hold us steady. And then we're going to bring this leg across the body and make a big circle. Hopefully we are so steady that the torso never moves and the leg creates a little resistance. So the circle doesn't have to be huge, you just need it to be enough to create resistance that you have to hold on to with your abdominal muscles. So we're using the abs as stabilizers now. One more that direction. When you get to the top, you're going to take your legs straight out to the side. Bring it down so the legs come together and then go straight up the middle. And again, the range of motion is up to you, but really hold steady through your torso. Keep pressing your upper arms down, drawing the sides of the waist in. And hold your hips steady. Last one. Beautiful. Bring that leg in. You can put the foot on the ground, put the other foot there, and give yourself just a moment. Notice the difference between the right and left side. So we're going to bring both knees back in. We're going to curl the shoulder blades up off the mat. And again, this is that point where I want to notice if I pull with my neck, can I keep the neck muscles stabilizing my head without pulling? If the answer is no, then go ahead and put your hands behind your head again and press your head back into your hands. We'll just keep working on that notion. So we're going to curl in nice and snug, and then still using the abs to stabilize, which we're going to extend the arms and legs and curl them in. So the torso never moves, but the arms and legs, you can use your legs alone, leave your hands behind your head. Okay? So the arms and legs are extending to make it much more challenging for me to keep my pelvis and my shoulders off the floor. 3 more. All right. So then you're going to grab hold of your left leg and stretch your right leg all the way out. I'm going to angle myself a little bit differently so I have room. And then holding onto your left leg, spin your left foot in circles.
So Candace is in her house.
Did you have a question? Is everybody okay out there? Okay, keep going.
Hey, Dandy, somebody hasn't muted their thing.
Okay, you guys don't have any questions. It's just a mic issue.
Yes.
Okay, I'll mute them. All right. Hopefully that'll solve our problem. Again, if you have a question, just turn your mic back on. Point and flex your foot if you haven't already. All right, so so then we're going to try that little hamstring stretch. Be kind. Stretching up and bringing the leg back in. Okay, so then we're going to extend the leg and hold it steady. And again, take the right leg, turn it so the toes point up, dig your heel in, get your torso nice and, shoulder blades under you nice and firm, draw the sides of the waist in, and then we take the leg across and bring it around, and we're trying to really hold steady through the torso. So I don't want the hips to move. I want to use my abdominal muscles to hold myself steady as my leg is making this circle. All right, so we're going to do one more circle, go in that direction, holding nice and steady. When you get to the top, we'll take the leg out to the side, bring the legs together and come straight up. Hold with the abdominals. So every time my leg goes out, I'm hugging in through the sides of my waist to try to hold my hips steady. Good, one more time. All right, bringing the legs together, again, feet to the ground. Pause there for a moment and then just notice. Notice if one side was a little different than the other. Maybe there's a little bigger challenge on one side. So we're gonna do the 100. Which is sort of like suspending a boat pose while simultaneously flapping your arms about. It's called the 100 because we're going to do 100 little flaps. Now there's a couple of different ways to approach the 100. So the first possibility is that you're going to do this with both feet on the floor as we are. Curl your shoulders off the mat. And then maybe, again, if you can sustain the neck without using it to pull on, you can do both arms at the same time. If you're going to find yourself using your neck to pull, pull where your abs are supposed to be doing the work, then put one hand behind your head so you can keep your neck steady. We'll do 50 on one side, 50 on the other side, okay? So the most supported would be having both feet on the ground. The next option would be, I'm gonna pulse with the right hand and extend the left leg out. So now I've got a little bit more challenge. Put that leg down, pulse with the left hand, extend the right leg, okay? So that gives me a kind of second layer challenge. And then the last one would be that both my legs are extended and I pulse with both hands for the full 100 rounds, all right? This is a tough move, y'all. We're gonna do our best. So curling the shoulder blades up, choosing the appropriate amount of support for yourself and the amount of challenge. Then we're going to pulse the arms for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep the abdominals curled in. 3, 2, 1. Hugging the sides of your waist. 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 3, 2, 1. Other side if you're doing one at a time. 10, 9, 8, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Curl in. 8, keep your neck steady. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 3, 2, 1. Bringing it on down. Whew. Give yourself a big stretch. Now, depending on the level of challenge, you might need a little more recovery time or a little less recovery time. But rinse out any tension from your neck. Open up your hip flexors a little bit. So we're going to do one more move while we're here, and that's the little double straight leg stretch, where we're going to take the legs straight, back and forth past each other, a little bit like a pair of scissors, opening and then closing, although ours are not going to come back together, they're just going to keep sliding past each other. We're going to curl the shoulders up off the mat, Bring the legs in, extend the legs. One leg reaches out, that's the leg that's challenging us. We reach up towards the leg that's up towards the leg that's up, okay? You can reach up with your hands, kind of like you're trying to almost like just tap your ankle. Or again, you can do this with your hands behind your head so that you keep your neck nice and stable. So we're curling in from the abs. That little extra ab curl, reach through that leg that's going away from you. Good. Keep the movement slow and controlled, so you have to do the work. Two more sets. And then bringing the legs together, we're going to let ourselves come all the way up to all fours. So to do that, you could just roll onto your side when you're ready and come on up. So hopefully we felt movement that's both abdominal muscles as movers of the torso or movers of the spine, and also abdominal muscles as stabilizers. And the primary role of the abdominals is a stabilizer. But we're going to do two more things. So we're going to do some cat shapes, which is movement. Right? So as we curl in, drawing the navel up and in, curling the tailbone under, broadening across the upper back. As we curl this way, relaxing the abdominals, opening up the chest muscles, drawing the shoulder blades towards each other. Moving in those two directions. Notice how much easier it is maybe to curl up going this direction than it is against gravity on the ground. So we're going to add to this a spinal balance challenge. So we'll take one leg back behind, doesn't matter which one, and the opposite arm up front. So I have my right arm and my left leg. And now this is a stabilizer. So I'm poking in through the sides of the waist and reaching out. And then I can put the two together, curling in and stretching out. So I have to do both abdominal muscles as movers and as stabilizers. Stretch it out. One more time, curl it in. Now stretch it out. We're going to bring this left leg or whatever leg's behind you forward. And this brings us into a lunge. And so you can put your hands on your hips, you can bring your arms overhead, and put your hands on a block. We're going to move forward and back, kind of giving the hip flexor a little check-in. One of the things that sometimes happens, the knee isn't super happy about this, so you can try patting the surface. Another option you can try is lifting the shin off the ground. Sometimes this causes hamstring cramps. But often I find that it creates a situation where I don't feel any knee pressure because the quads are stabilizing my knee. But I do feel like I can stretch into the front of my hip. So check it out and see what's right for you. Go back the hips up and then go forward. And then back the hips up so I don't feel much. And then go forward until I feel that stretch across the front of the hip. And then one more time I'm going to back off. Now, I want to creep in so that I just feel that stretch on the front of my hip. Not much further than that. My shin back down. And again, you can kind of choose how you want to work with, whether you want to get a little higher up or a little lower down with your arms, torso. Take one more breath here. Now we're going to stretch out the hamstrings. So once more, I'm going to back myself up so that my leg is as straight as I can make it. I'm going to see what happens if I bring that hip down a little bit. And then folding towards the leg. See what that feels like. Take it to a diagonal. See where that takes you. And then kind of choose the one that's feeling interesting today. You can bring the toes up or leave them down. right, yogis, we're going to take 2 more breaths. And then we're going to come back so that that leg comes back and down, and I'm back to my all fours position. So then take the opposite leg back behind you, and then the opposite arm out. Draw in through the sides of the waist, try to stabilize nice and firm with the abs, holding and stretching out. And then curl in if you like. If it's extra wobbly, you can also put the hand down and just curl the knee. So, making the challenge your own. One more time. So hand comes down, leg comes all the way forward. And again, choosing an appropriate amount of lunge. So feel your way in forward, and then back away from that line. So we're trying to find, like, where do I first feel it and where does it become like really intense? Where is too far? Stop right before that point, but get to the, experiment a little, feel it out. And then with our last pulsation forward, we're going to stop right at the point where you feel it, and then just pause there. Choose a different, upper body position as you like. Notice maybe the sensation evolves and it softens, and then you go a little further forward. Maybe you realize you went a little too far, you back a little bit off. Couple more nice deep breaths. And then we're going to take this into the opposite stretch, so we're going to send the hips back. Again, if I take this hip and just pull it down a little bit and center myself over the leg, whether the toes are up or down, how does that feel? And if I take myself to the diagonal a little bit, how does that feel? And choosing the one you're liking the most today. I think they're both interesting. One is a little spicier than the other today. Okay, one more breath. And then we're going to ease our way back to an all fours position. Right, now, just pausing for a moment and noticing where you landed. If downward dog is not an appropriate pose for you, for whatever reason, having your head lower than your hips is not a really good idea, then you can stick to this all fours position, or simply transition from this into a standing pose, right? If downward dog is an appropriate pose, you can do this relatively safely for yourself. We're going to take the hands about shoulder distance apart, tuck the toes, lift the hips, and then you're going to experiment with the shoulders for a moment. So we're going to move the shoulder blades up and down the back, shake out the neck, and then you're looking for the spot on your back where your shoulder blades feel like they really merge in, and you've got a lot of muscle to help support your shoulders so that your neck and arms and wrists are not doing the work that the shoulders are. And then you can walk your heels up and down, kind of get into the calf muscles a little bit. Ooh, you can move your hips, add some little twists. And then when you feel ready, you're going to bring yourself to a forward bend. The forward bend can be done at the halfway point, so you keep your head up, or you can fold all the way over if it doesn't bother your hamstring attachments. Give your wrist a little shimmy. We're going to stretch the hands out as wide as they'll go, and then curl them in. And stretch them out nice and wide. Ooh, curl them in. And stretch them out nice and wide. We're coming all the way up to standing. When you get here, give yourself a nice big stretch. right. So we're going to take a little journey up to the top of the mat, if your mat has a top. If you don't have a mat, no worries, just pick a spot with some room behind you. And then take a moment, you need a drink of water, you need to make sure your mat's not too slippery, or you can just check into your breath, as the case may be. All right. So point your toes forward. See what happens if you try to stand with equal weight on your feet. Do you notice a difference in your hips? So sometimes even just turning the toes forward for me makes a difference happen. Relax the shoulders without pushing the rib cage forward. And then stand there without locking your knees out. And take 2 more breaths. We're going to take a nice big breath, reach the right, put all the weight into the right leg, and then we're going to take this left leg and pick it up. And we're just going to try to hold the knee up. So you can hold onto it with your hands, or you can just balance. I like to notice, like, if I lift my leg higher, what happens to my posture. So we got 1 more big breath. And then we're going to step this leg back into a warrior 1 shape. So I want the feet on the floor. There's going to probably be a bit of a diagonal to the hip, because not everyone's ankle joint will allow our toes to point forward and the heel to be on the ground. So I'm going to find a spot that feels reasonable and wide enough that I don't feel too wobbly. Then we're going to press the legs into the ground so that we've got a nice structure. So we're stretching the legs away from each other. Then we're going to add the spine stretch to this. So we're reaching out through the crown of the head all the way over. If the arms are too much, you can do the spine stretch without the arms. So you're stretching out through the torso, out through the back of the neck. Stretch forward, stretch forward, stretch forward. When you run into your thigh, you're going to let the whole thing get soft. And then roll yourself up as best you can, 1 vertebrae at a time. I like to do this with my eyes closed so it's extra wobbly. You can keep your eyes open. Coming forward, stretch forward. And then we're going to roll it up. Now, if you'd like, you can bind your hands behind your back, and that will create a different shoulder opener. I'm going to turn to the diagonal. I'm going to do 1 more of these spine stretches, and then I'm going to pause here on the diagonal and reach my arms out, almost like I'm going into downward dog. Now, I like to do it with blocks, but you can do it without. Find an angle that doesn't cause your hip to have any trouble. Stretch the mat out, and we're going to let ourselves fold into this empty space, into humble warrior. I don't know about you guys, but I can definitely feel my right butt cheek. All that work that we're doing on this hip is definitely telling me a story. But since it's fun, I'm going to keep going just a little bit longer and do a balance pose. So I'm going to put a block in front of my right foot a little bit and on the left side. Then leaving my left hand on the block, I'm going to pick up my left leg and twist towards the right. This is going to make my right butt cheek do a little bit more work, which is definitely exciting. So reaching out nice and long, twisting towards the right, taking 1 more big breath. Beautiful. Now, you're either going to step up to the top of the mat, or you can go all the way back into downward dog. Notice what happens. Ooh. Come forward into a plank, or step back into a plank, as the case may be. And then we're going to lower down to the belly with control. Come into cobra, hands up a little high. All right, then we're going to lower the hands an inch. Come into cobra. You're using your back muscles in your legs, not your hands or your arms. Slide your hands back a little bit more. Lift. Now pause right there. Lift the legs a bit. Draw the collarbones wider and the shoulder blades down. So we're broadening out across the chest. Let the neck go along for the ride. Reach through the legs, spread the toes out. Squeeze them towards each other a little bit. Get your rib cage up if you can. Last breath. Good, then we're coming back down. We're gonna put our hands where we need them to push back up and into downward dog. Left leg goes up. Bring that knee in nice and snug, curl up around it. Stretch it back, sink into the right heel a bit. Curl in. Stretch it back. Sink into that right heel if you can. Then we're gonna step that leg forward. Bring the right one up to meet it. Wherever it went is fine. Lift up halfway. Exhale, fold. And then come all the way to standing. And give yourself a nice big stretch. Notice how you feel. So when you're back in your mountain pose, do you feel the difference between the right side and the left side? All right, so we're going to shift the weight to the left leg. Get good and steady. And bring the right leg up and try to hold it. So essentially, it's like doing chair pose with one leg. And standing with the other. And again, for me, experimenting with like, can I keep my posture nice and steady while I try to lift that thigh a little higher? 2 more breaths. And then we're going to step back into warrior one. Again, I don't want to try to square my hip forward. I want to let the hip go with the legs. However that works. Nice and steady. Reach the legs in 2 different directions. And then we're going to stretch the spine forward. And roll up. So as I'm stretching forward, I'm pressing down into this back leg to keep myself anchored. Even though it almost feels like that foot wants to come up off the ground with me, I'm resisting that urge. One more time with the spine stretch. Reach. Roll it up. Okay, so this time, I lied. We're gonna stretch one more time, but to the diagonal. Again, you can bind your arms behind your back. You laced your fingers together, do a different finger on top. Okay, so we're gonna stretch into this diagonal. And again, you can either do this little downward dog kind of shoulder opener, or the bound arms. Let yourself bow in. Stretch the legs between the 2 points. You want to feel this left hip getting very active. Everything else is relaxed, except maybe the shoulders. All right, so again, I'm going to take my right arm and reach it up in front. And then I'm going to pick my right leg up off the floor, holding on to the block. Or you can put your hand on the floor. You don't have to have a block. And then twist towards your left. Reach through your right leg. And try to get this left hip to fall in love with us. Or maybe the opposite. Ooh, I like this pose. Reach. One more breath. Beautiful. With both hands on the floor, step all the way back into down dog. Or again, you can pause and join us for the plank. Oh. All right. So from your plank, we're going to lower down. Come into a little cobra. Again, hands pretty high, using the back muscles. And then we're going to slide the hands back. Lift. Beautiful. One more time, slide the hands back. Lift. Now we're going to come down, turn your head to one side, and you can lace the fingers together behind your back, or just lay the arms down, palms up. Bend your knees. We're going to pulse the heels in. 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to come to the center, bring your head to even, lift and reach back to the arms and the legs. Turn the head the opposite way to land. 1, 2, 3 with the heels. Lift, come toward the midline, coming down. 1, 2, 3. Lift and lengthen. Coming down. 1, 2, 3. Lift and lengthen. Coming down. Make sure you're not using your neck to lift yourself. 1, 2, 3. Lift and lengthen. Coming down. 2 more. 1, 2, 3. Lift and lengthen. Coming down. 1, 2, 3. Lift, lengthen, and then return. So we're going to take ourselves back to down dog, or maybe child's pose. You're just needing a child's pose moment. Oh. And take a moment, just notice. And then when you're ready, we'll take that right leg up, curl it in, stretch it back, curl it in, stretch it back, curl it in, step it forward, and then bring your left one up to meet it. Come up halfway, exhale and fold, and then come all the way to standing. Give yourself a big stretch when you get there. And then find your mountain pose one more time. And so what we're interested in is there a difference in the way the mountain pose feels now compared to the beginning or the middle? I don't know about you, but I always feel a difference. It's kind of cool. So we're gonna squat, and then we're gonna sit down on the mat. So I make that sound easy, and for some people it really is. For me, it's not, but I'm gonna do my best. So I'm gonna take my feet out kind of wide, because I already know that's better for me. And then I'm just gonna see how low I can bring my hips. This is a challenging posture for a lot of us. When you have had enough, you're gonna make your way down to the floor. Now again, some people are close enough to the ground they can just sit right down. If that's not you, then bring yourself down in whatever way makes sense. If you need to stay a little longer in your squat, go for it. We're gonna pick the breastbone up. We're gonna pick the knees up and come into a boat pose. And we'll add a little pulse by bringing the knees to the elbows. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bring the feet to the ground, and we're gonna have to get the sit bones out from under, so we're just gonna tilt until they kind of slide back. Now you can leave this diamond between your feet and your hips quite wide, or you can pull your feet in quite tight. We're gonna try to keep the spine nice and elongated and fold forward from the pelvis. This may not happen genetically. Some people's pelvis is gonna go backwards. So for you, the task is to try to elongate and then bring those inner thighs towards the floor, right? So you're wrapping them around towards the back. And then some people will have some forward momentum. Same idea, we're gonna wrap the inner thighs around towards the back. So I'm just gonna see, like, how close to the ground can I bring my thighs within reason? Take a nice big breath. And as you exhale, we're now going to let the back get a little softer. So we're just going to let everything get round. Now, don't worry about coming forward more unless it automatically happens. But notice the difference between that elongated core supported pose and this where we get really soft and let the back come into a round shape. There is a difference. There's no wrong or right. They're just different. With this shape, I notice the breath in my low back more. And that has its benefits. So take one more big breath. And then we're gonna let ourselves come first back into a nice elongated spine, core supported spine, and then come out of there, lean back a little, unwind your legs, and give them a little rinse. So we're gonna lie down on our right side. You can use your right arm as a pillow, or if for whatever reason that causes trouble for your shoulder, for your arm to be straight up like that, you can put your arm straight out in front of you and use something else, a block or a blanket underneath your head, okay? The primary thing for me is that the neck is neutral. You can do this like this, but this can be a lot of strain on the neck. And since I think our necks get enough strain as it is, I tend to err on this side. And then we're really forced to do more of the work from our abdominals anyway. So you can decide how to do things because you're at your house. But that's my logic. So if your legs are lined up so that they go pretty much, heels are lined up with the hips, this is a little more challenging to hold stable. If you bring your legs a little bit forward, so the heels are forward of the hips, this is more stable. And so you're gonna choose a stability option that's appropriate for you depending on how things go. So if you wanna add a little bit more onto it, you can create a little bit more of a challenge by lifting the arm up, or putting the arm beside the ear, hand beside the ear, or you can put your hand on your hip. Those are all a little less supported. More support, bring the hand forward so you can press a little bit into the floor, press in through your abdominals, and it creates a good structure. So choose the appropriate amount of support. We're gonna take this top leg, we're gonna turn the heels together and the toes separate, so we've got external rotation. And then we're gonna lift this top leg and we're gonna circle it, and we're trying to hold the torso totally still. Okay, so the leg is circling, the torso's hugging in. Lift your right side waist up. Good, we got 3 more, 2 more, 1 more. Now pause. We're gonna turn so the toes come together and we've got heels apart. That's an internal rotation. And then we're gonna circle the legs trying to hold that internal rotation. So this greater trochanter, the femur is lifting up and the knee and the toes are pointing slightly down. This tends to drag my hip forward. So I wanna really maintain the abdominals here to hold my hips steady. So I've got that internal rotation really working these outer hip muscles. Okay, 2 more, 1 more. Bring the legs together. So we're gonna bring the feet behind us. We're gonna keep working the same internal, external rotation. So I'm gonna lift the heels up. So my knees are resting on the ground, my feet are in the air. I'm gonna take the knees apart. That might be plenty. I hold it for a beat and then close it, or you can add on knees apart, extend your top leg, bring the toes together, bring the knees together, okay? So nice and smooth like you're underwater, and don't move too quickly. You really want a smooth, steady movement. Keep your hips stacked on top of each other. Keep your shoulders nice and stable. So the only thing moving are the legs. Everything else is stabilizing. And hopefully you can feel this outer hip. Ooh, we've worked it hard today. Between the balance poses and this. Okay, we got 3 more. And last one. All right, so we're gonna bring the legs back down. Just putting them down might give you a kind of a sense of relief around this outer hip. Then we're gonna take this top leg and either bring it forward or bend at the knee and place the foot firmly on the ground. So that's up to you and your hip. Again, trying to maintain stability here, we're gonna lift the leg that's on the bottom. So the right leg lifts, hug up through your right side waist, and then pulse the leg up for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now hold it lifted. Lift that right side waist for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, lift it a little more, 1. Now we're gonna make circles, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let the leg come down. Now with this leg up, keep your left leg over your right leg and roll onto your back so you've got a little bit of a twist, or actually quite a lot of twist, let's face it. And then you're going to take the legs with you, but cross them over each other and keep them like that. Now, with the legs in this position, if you already feel a stretch in your hip, you're there. If you want, you can bring the legs in closer to you and hold on to them. Or if you'd rather, you can flip onto your belly and do a pigeon pose that way. So either the reclining pigeon or a regular pigeon. And we'll stay for about 1.5 minutes, just breathing and holding steady. I love this pose. After doing a lot of work with the hip, it's intense, and that area is quite sensitive, so be kind. But it feels really nice to just hang out with that same area. I was just working really hard. So about 30 more seconds here. Take a nice big breath. Now, if you're doing the regular pigeon, you can roll back onto your back if you want to, or you can come to a seated position. We're going to release the leg and give everything a little bit of a shimmy and a shake. And then the thing to do is just notice. Notice how it feels. Does the left side feel different than your right side? We did a whole bunch of work with the left side. Can you feel a difference? Now, the way that it feels to me is like my left side's a little bit longer. My left hip feels like it's closer to the floor than my right hip. If I put my hands here, they're not that big a difference, but it sure feels like a big difference. It even feels like I've got a longer waist on my left side. So again, this is information that's being sent back to my brain from my fascia, not even from the muscle, but from the fascia, the sheath of connective tissue that holds everything together. There are way more nerve endings in our fascia than there are in our muscle. And so the muscle information is largely about contracting and working, but the information that we're really trying to perceive is the parasympathetic nervous system nerves sending information back to the brain from our connective tissue. It's really cool. All right, so enough science. We're gonna do the other side. So we're gonna roll onto the left side. I'm turning all the way around. And you can too, in the event that you need to see a screen that's on one side and moving, just rolling over is not the right answer. So hips on top of hips, shoulders on top of shoulders, choosing what to do with your arm. Again, we're going to hug in the sides of the waist. We're going to turn the toes so that the toes are apart and the heels are together. We're going to lift that top leg and you're going to make a circle. Doesn't matter which direction the circle goes. Just try to hold your body steady as you're circling the leg with that external rotation. Now notice which muscles are sending information to your brain. Which areas? For me, it's this whole upper glute medius area. It's a little different sensation than the other way. So hold steady now and then bring the toes together and the heels apart. So now I've got an internal rotation. You want to feel this greater trochanter, this bone right here on the side of your hip, lifting up towards the diagonal, knee is pointing down, and then we're going to circle that leg with that internal rotation and see if you notice a difference in terms of the muscle. So for me, this is higher up on the hip and a little different around the bottom edge of the glutes. So just notice for yourself. There's a little bit of sensation with my internal hip rotator as well. Oh, it's exciting. I like getting kind of building my awareness of different muscle areas of the body that I often ignore. So one more time, then we're going to bring the feet together, bring them behind, so the feet are behind the knees, or pretty close, and then we're going to lift them up. So the knees are resting on the floor, feet are together, you're going to open the knees, you can either hold for a beat and then close it up, or open, extend the legs. So if that hurts your knee, just hold for a beat. So this can be quite challenging for that IT band if you've got challenges there, so be kind. So extending and being nice and smooth in the movement. So 3 more of those. Come back together, we're going to extend them out. We're going to take that leg across the top. It might be straight. You might put the foot on the ground. This really is just up to you and your hip. And then you want to get stable. So there's a tendency for when I put my foot on the ground for my hip to go backwards. So I just want to be aware of that and hold my hip stable. So I'm going to lift the bottom leg, hug up through the side of my left waist. So I'm lifting everything on the bottom, and then we're pulsing up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Holding that leg lifted for 10, 9, 8. Lift that sideways. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Making a circle now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Good. Bring that leg down. So again, we're going to leave the legs in the position they're in and just roll the shoulder toward the floor. Pause there for a moment. And then when it feels like a good idea, we're going to come around onto the back. And you either then wind up with that right leg up on top of your left leg, and that's it. You just hold right there. Or you bring the legs in and hold onto them, or you can roll onto your belly and do your pigeon that way. And then adjusting as you need. For any muscle cramping, you can take yourself just into the appropriate version of the pose, given the way your hip is telling you stories today. And then just relax. So again, we're going to stay for about 1.5 minutes or so. Just letting the body relax. Stretch out your legs. Ooh. Settle yourself onto the floor. Maybe you need to put your blanket back in underneath your legs this time, or under your head. And let yourself relax. yogis, take a moment just to notice your breath. Take a breath so deep you can feel it to your toes. Let it go with a big sigh. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Stretch your hands and feet out. Give yourself a big, full body stretch while you're at it. And then curl everything into a ball. Give yourself a little hug and a back massage. Roll to the side and come on up. So thanks for hanging with me, yogis. Let's take a big breath together. Nice big inhale. Big deep sigh. Namaste, yogis.